Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to trace what is honestly a fascinating domino effect through history. We're going to see how a single brilliant spark of 14th century thought directly built the incredibly complex, steam-powered capitalist world we're all living in today. It is literally a journey of ideas that reshaped the physical Earth. Let's get started. Okay, so here's our roadmap. We are covering 1. The dawn of modernism, 2. Reforming the old order, 3. The Industrial Revolution, 4. From feudalism to capitalism, and 5. The transportation transformation. Now, what's really wild about this timeline is the sheer scale of our journey. We are covering hundreds of years of massive societal shifts in just a few minutes here. From the start of the 14th century all the way to 1860, you're going to see exactly how each of these historical epochs acted as a domino, basically knocking over the next one and rapidly accelerating the pace of human change. Section 1. The Dawn of Modernism. Right, so this very first domino is the period that essentially acted as a bridge, pulling Europe out of the Dark Ages. The Renaissance, which is actually a French word meaning rebirth, spanned from the 14th to the 17th centuries. And the absolute crucial point for us here is that the Renaissance wasn't just about, beautiful paintings and sculptures. It was a fundamental rebirth of knowledge and science. It was the bridge that crossed the border from the Middle Ages directly into the modern age. The most significant achievement of this era? The spreading of a modern mentality, or modernism. Instead of a society focused entirely on God and the heavens, people began to actually look at human life right here on Earth. They started asking neutral, objective questions about the world around them. So human beings and our well-being became the absolute core subject of science, literature, and philosophy. It was a total game changer. Section 2. Reforming the Old Order. So naturally, this new questioning mindset eventually turned its gaze toward the ultimate authority of the time, the Church. And this brings us to the Reformation movement in the 16th century. Once people were encouraged to ask questions objectively, figures like Martin Luther and John Calvin initiated a massive movement to reform the Roman Catholic Church, really seeking to free it from irregularities. This ultimately founded Protestantism and firmly established the Protestant ethic. Honestly, it was a massive shockwave that had huge rippling effects on the continent's economy, society, and politics. Now, you might be wondering, why did this happen when it did? Well, the Reformation didn't happen in a vacuum. It was fueled by several overlapping factors: the internal weakness of the churches, the rising tide of nationalism, the resurrection of education we just talked about in the Renaissance, and, importantly, the decay of the old feudal system. The old order was literally crumbling around them. Section 3. The Industrial Revolution. Okay, we've seen how minds and spirits were transformed, but this new way of thinking eventually triggered a massive, tangible economic upheaval. The Industrial Revolution in Great Britain, taking place roughly between 1760 and 1860, wasn't just a sudden accident. It was the ultimate economic culmination of the material changes initiated centuries earlier by the Renaissance. The dominoes of modernism and Reformation had finally hit the real-world economy. There's a British economic historian, Arnold Toynbee, who actually coined the term Industrial Revolution, by the way, and he perfectly captured this pivotal moment. He observed that the wealth of nations and the steam engine literally destroyed the old world and built a brand new one. I think that just hits the nail on the head. The dominoes were falling so fast now, completely reshaping society. We see the birth of industrial capitalism, a massive upgrade in communication and transportation, explosive urbanization as folks migrated from rural areas straight into the cities, and a deeply changing division of labor. The world was literally being rewired from the ground up. And what did that rewiring look like on a global scale? Well, between 1750 and 1900, British manufacturing output absolutely dominated. As we can see visually represented here, the United Kingdom was surging way ahead of every other economy on Earth, simply because they harnessed this new industrial machine first. Section 4. From feudalism to capitalism. Now, to truly grasp the magnitude of this shift, we really have to understand the economic system that died. For centuries, from the 9th all the way to the 15th century, society was organized under feudalism. Under the system, your entire worth and position were rigidly tied to land, known as a fief. Society was completely ordered around the relationship between lords who held the land and vassals who provided military service or agricultural labor in exchange for protection and a place to live. But as feudalism decayed, capitalism rose up to replace it. This introduced totally radical concepts for the time: private ownership of production, profit, capital accumulation, and perhaps most importantly for the everyday person, wage labor. Instead of being tied to a lord's land, people sold their labor in a competitive laissez-faire market. So the absolute crucial contrast is this. We transitioned completely from an agriculture-based, feudal society made up of rural, land-bound peasants into an industry-based, capitalist society powered by an urban, wage-earning workforce. It was a total inversion of how human beings survived and thrived. Section 5. The Transportation Transformation. Let's look at our final domino. How did this brand new capitalist machine actually move its goods and its people? Well, before the Industrial Revolution, humanity was at the absolute mercy of nature. Communication and transportation relied entirely on animal and natural power: horses, camels, the wind, the sea tides. But the Industrial Revolution transformed all of that into mechanical power. The steam engine was the ultimate game changer here. By replacing a horse or a sail with a steam engine, transportation time, volume, and networks were completely revolutionized. The world shrank significantly. The very first railways appeared in England in 1825, and then by 1853, just a few decades later, they were already being built in the Indian subcontinent. The idea spread like wildfire. But to keep this massive, mechanized, super fast-moving capitalist economy running smoothly, the nature of human work had to change. As Adam Smith defined it, society shifted to a complex division of labor. Instead of one person doing a large, holistic job like traditional farming, jobs were broken down into tiny components. A worker became an expert in just one isolated area, vastly increasing overall efficiency and profit for the factory. Which leaves us with a pretty provocative thought about our own daily routines. We follow the dominoes from the free-thinking artists of the Renaissance, right through the religious reformers, down to the mechanized, highly specialized wage labor factory floor. But looking at our incredibly complex, hyper-specialized modern world today, we have to ask ourselves, has this changing division of labor truly freed us, or simply changed the nature of our servitude? Definitely something to think about next time you clock in for your specialized task. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the world around you.